My name is William. I am 82 years old, and I am currently dying in a room full of strangers who happen to share my last name. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to me closely, especially if you are a young father or a mother who thinks she's doing the right thing by working herself into the ground. I need to tell you about the silence in my house. It's a big house, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, a manicured lawn that I paid a fortune to maintain. It is the house I dreamed of when I was a boy, growing up dirt poor, in a one-room shack in Kentucky. It is the symbol of my success. And right now, it feels like a mausoleum. My children are coming over today, not because they want to, not because they miss me, but because my doctor called them and told them the end is near. And I know exactly what is going to happen. They will walk in, they will be polite, they will be cordial, they will ask if I am comfortable, they will check the charts, but they will not hold my hand, they will not cry. And when they step out into the hallway, they won't be talking about my memories or the lessons I taught them. They will be talking about the estate, the will, the liquidation of assets. I know this because I heard them last time. I heard my oldest son, Thomas, say to his sister, "We need to make sure the portfolio is liquid before the end of the fiscal year." He wasn't talking about a business deal. He was talking about me. He was talking about my life. And the tragedy, the absolute gut-wrenching tragedy that keeps me awake at night staring at the ceiling, is that I cannot blame them. I want to call them ungrateful. I want to scream that I gave them everything, that I paid for the private schools, the cars, the weddings, the down payments on their own houses. I want to call them vultures, but they aren't vultures. They are investors, and they are simply waiting for their investment to finally mature. I did this. I built this dynamic. I turned my family into a business, and now, at 82, I'm simply the CEO who has stayed too long in the chair. If you are grinding away right now, telling yourself you are doing it for them, you need to hear my story. Because you are building a cage, and you don't even see the bars yet. Let me take you back to where the lie began. It was 1974. I was 30 years old, newly married, with a baby on the way, my son Thomas. I was working as a junior executive at a logistics firm. I was hungry. I was terrified of being poor again. I remembered the hunger in my belly from my own childhood, the shame of wearing shoes with holes in the soles, and I swore on my life that my children would never feel that. Society told me, just like it's telling you right now, that a good father is a provider. That was the word, provider. It implies that your value is strictly measured by what you bring through the front door. So, I provided. Lord, did I provide? I started working 60, sometimes 70 hours a week. I was the first one in the office when the lights were still humming, that low buzz in the morning, and I was the last one to leave when the janitors were emptying the trash bins. I climbed the ladder. I destroyed the competition. By 1985, I was a vice president. We moved into the big house. We bought the vacation home at the lake. We had 2 Mercedes in the driveway. But let me tell you what that provision actually cost. I remember a specific Tuesday in 1989. My daughter Sarah was 7 years old. She had a dance recital. She had been practicing for weeks. She would spin around in the kitchen in her little tutu, begging me to watch. "Daddy, watch me, watch me." And I would say, "Not now, honey. Daddy is on a call. Daddy is working so we can buy you nice things." The night of the recital came. I had a merger meeting that was running late. I could have left. The company wouldn't have collapsed. But I stayed. I stayed because I convinced myself that closing this deal was the ultimate act of love for my family. It would mean a bigger bonus, a better vacation. I got home at 9:30. Sarah was already asleep. My wife, Ellen, was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, looking at the wall. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She just looked at me with this tired, hollow expression and said, "She kept looking for you in the crowd, William. Every time she spun around, she looked for your face. And when she realized you weren't there, she fell down. She just gave up." I felt a twinge of guilt, sure, but I buried it. I pulled out my checkbook, my shield, my weapon, and I paid for a summer camp in Europe. I bought her a pony the next year. I bought my son a car the day he turned 16, a brand new Mustang. He hugged me, sure, but it was a quick hug. It was the hug you give a bank teller when they hand you a withdrawal. I taught them that love was transactional. I taught them that an apology is a gift card. I taught them that Daddy isn't a person with feelings and stories and fears. Daddy is a resource. Daddy is the machine that spits out money if you push the right buttons. I remember dinners where I sat at the head of the table, physically present but mentally 1,000 miles away. My mind was on quarterly projections, on market shares, on the next acquisition. My kids would be talking about school, about their friends, about their fears, and I would just nod. That's nice. Good job. How much do you need for that field trip? I didn't ask questions. I didn't know their teachers' names. I didn't know who broke their hearts. I just knew what size checks to write. I told myself I was sacrificing for them. I was a martyr for their future. I'm doing this so you don't have to struggle, I'd say. But that was a lie. I was doing it for my ego. I was doing it because being the provider made me feel powerful. Being a father, a real, present, vulnerable father, that made me feel helpless. I didn't know how to play on the floor. I didn't know how to comfort a crying teenager. So I retreated to the office. It was easier to make $1 million than to have a 10-minute real conversation with my son. And slowly, year by year, brick by gold-plated brick, I built a wall. On one side was me and my money. On the other side was my family and their lives. And now, 50 years later, I am sitting on top of a mountain of cash, but I cannot cross that wall. The turning point wasn't a dramatic explosion. It wasn't a fight. It was much colder than that. It happened 3 months ago. I had a minor stroke. I was lucky. I didn't lose my speech or my movement, but it was a wake-up call. I spent 4 days in the hospital. My wife, Ellen, passed away 6 years ago. God, I miss her. I realized too late that I had bored her to death with my absence. So I was alone in that hospital room. My children came to visit. Thomas came on the second day. He walked in, wearing a suit that cost more than my father made in a decade. He checked his watch 3 times in the first 10 minutes. He didn't ask me how I felt. He didn't ask if I was scared. He pulled up a chair, opened his briefcase, and took out a folder. "Dad," he said, his voice level and professional, "we need to discuss the power of attorney. If this happens again, and it's worse, we need to make sure the trust is protected from probate." I looked at him. This is my son. I taught him how to tie a tie. I paid for his MBA. And he was looking at me not as his dying father, but as a depreciating asset that needed to be managed. Then Sarah arrived. She was more gentle, but it was that cordial gentleness you use with an elderly neighbor you don't really know. She brought me a magazine. She sat on the edge of the bed and scrolled through her phone. I tried to talk to her. I wanted to connect. I said, "Sarah, do you remember that time we went to the lake? When you caught that fish?" She didn't look up from her phone. She just said, "Dad, we sold the lake house 10 years ago. Remember? You said the market was peaking." That hit me like a physical blow. She didn't remember the fish. She didn't remember the sun on her face or me taking the hook out. She remembered the sale. She remembered the market value, because that is what I taught her to value. But the moment that broke me, the moment that shattered the last remnant of my denial, happened that night. They thought I was asleep. The door to my room was slightly ajar. They were standing in the hallway, drinking coffee from the vending machine. I heard Thomas say, "The house in the Hamptons needs a new roof. If we don't fix it before he passes, it's going to ding the listing price by at least 50 grand. Sarah sighed. "I know, but if we do it now, we have to use his funds, and he might ask questions. It's better to just wait. He can't last another winter. He can't last another winter." They weren't discussing a person. They were discussing a property management issue. They weren't malicious. They weren't evil. They were pragmatic. They were exactly who I raised them to be. I raised them to understand the value of $1, and in the process, they lost the understanding of the value of a life. I laid there in the dark, tears streaming into my ears, realized that I had succeeded. I had achieved the American dream. I was rich. My children were rich. And I was the poorest man on earth. I'd spent 50 years buying their love. And now I was realizing that I had only rented their tolerance. And the lease was about to expire. I realized then that my legacy meant nothing to them. The awards, the plaques, the newspaper clippings, it was all just future trash. They were going to hire a company to come into my house, my beautiful empty fortress, and shovel 90% of my life into a dumpster. They wouldn't fight over my favorite books. They wouldn't cry over my old tools. They would sell the house, split the cash, and move on. I am 82 years old, and I don't have much time left. But you do. If you are 30, 40, 50, you still have time to stop the machine. You still have time to tear up the contract you've unwittingly signed with your children. Here is what I need you to understand about being a provider versus being a father. First, you must understand the lie of quality time. I used to tell myself, I don't have much quantity of time with them, so I'll make the time I do have quality. That meant expensive trips, Disneyland, skiing in Aspen, front row seats. But that is garbage. Children do not bond with you during the fireworks at Disney World. They bond with you in the boring moments. They bond with you while you're driving them to practice on a Tuesday. They bond with you while you're making pancakes on a Saturday morning and you burn the first batch. Intimacy is built in the mundane. You cannot schedule quality time. You have to put in the quantity to catch the quality. If you are outsourcing the driving, the cooking, the bedtime reading, the homework help, you are outsourcing the relationship. You are paying someone else to be their parent. Don't be surprised when they view you as the financier of their life rather than the architect of it. Second, understand the concept of future trash. I look around my study right now. I see a mahogany desk that costs $6,000. I see a crystal decanter set. I see limited edition prints. And I see trash. Future trash. We spend our lives accumulating things to impress people we don't like, or to prove to our children that we love them. But your children do not want your stuff. When you die, your stuff becomes a burden. It becomes a Saturday they have to waste clearing out your basement. Stop buying them things to apologize for your absence. A PlayStation will keep them quiet for a month. A game of catch in the backyard will stay in their memory for 40 years. I bought my son everything, but I never taught him how to shave. I paid a barber to do it, and now he looks at me and sees a wallet, not a mentor. Give them your skills, your jokes, your time, your annoying habits. Give them you, not the things you can buy. Third, and this is the hardest one, stop hiding behind your work. I used work as a shield. It was valid. It was noble. I'm providing. It was the perfect excuse to avoid the messiness of emotional intimacy. It's easier to manage a team of 50 employees than to manage the emotions of one teenage daughter. At work, people listened to me. I had authority. At home, I was just a guy who didn't know where the silverware went. So I stayed at work. I stayed where I felt competent. If you are doing this, if you are staying late not because you have to, but because you feel more comfortable in the office than in your own living room, you are a coward. I was a coward. Go home. Be incompetent. Be awkward. Sit in the discomfort of not knowing how to connect, and keep trying until you do. Because the competence you feel at work is fake. It ends the day you retire. The connection you build at home is the only thing that survives you. Fourth, recognize the transaction trap. If you pay your children for good grades, if you buy them cars for graduating, if you link every achievement to a financial reward, you are training them to negotiate. You are turning your home into a marketplace. I did this. I thought I was teaching them incentives. I was teaching them greed. I should have taught them passion. I should have taught them duty. Instead of writing a check when Sarah got an A, I should have sat down and read the book she wrote the report on. I should have engaged with her mind, not her wallet. Now my children only call me when they need something. And why shouldn't they? That is the system I designed. If the phone rings, I know it's going to cost me. Dad, the market is down. Should we shift the trust? Dad, little Timmy's tuition is due. They don't call to ask, Dad, how are you sleeping? They don't call to say, I saw a bird today that reminded me of you. Because I never established that currency. We only deal in dollars. Finally, realize that you cannot buy back time. It is the biggest cliche in the world, and it is the truest thing I know. I would trade every single dollar in my accounts right now, millions of them, to go back to 1989. To that Tuesday night, I would walk out of that merger meeting. I would let the deal fall apart. I would drive home. I would walk into that auditorium. I would sit in the front row, and I would watch my daughter spin in her tutu. And when she looked for me, I would be there. I would wave. I would let her know that she was more important than the bottom line. I missed it, and I can never ever get it back. The memory of that merger is dust. I don't even remember the company's name, but the memory of my wife's face when she told me I broke my daughter's heart, that is etched in stone. That is the hell I live in. I see you. I see you in your 30s and 40s. You're tired. You're stressed. You have a mortgage. You have ambition. You want to give your family the world. But listen to an old man who succeeded at everything that doesn't matter and failed at everything that does. The world you are trying to give them is fake. The only world that matters is the one you build between you and them, moment by moment, day by day. Your children are not waiting for your inheritance. They are waiting for you until they stop waiting. And once they stop waiting, they start calculating. Once they stop looking for your face in the crowd, they start looking at your assets on a spreadsheet. Don't let that happen. Break the cycle. Tonight, go home. Leave your phone in the car. Look your spouse in the eyes. Get down on the floor with your kids. Don't buy them a toy. Build a fort out of cardboard boxes. Be present. Be broke if you have to, but be there. Because a smaller house filled with love and noise and memories is a mansion. My mansion? My quiet, pristine, expensive mansion? It's just a waiting room for death. I'm William. I'm 82. And I'm warning you, don't be me. If this story scared you, good. It should. If it made you want to change, do it now, not tomorrow. Now. Subscribe to this channel not for me, I won't be here much longer, but for the other voices sharing the truth before it's too late. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me what you are going to stop chasing and who you are going to start loving. Don't wait until the silence in your house is as loud as mine. Go home.